Guys, welcome to season 3 of Mega Maniacs. And in this season, we are going to continue to interview guests that you've never seen before, but we will also be interviewing guests that have been on Mega Maniacs to find out how they are doing since their interview and how things have changed for them. But today we're going to be interviewing Haley, and she has a very extensive and interesting experience with um, World Harvest Church and Harvest Preparatory School, and she will be going into that more. But our interview will be several parts for a couple of reasons. First, being that she had many, many years there, but also she has recently been diagnosed with something called FND, which is Functional Neurological Disorder. And we're going to do our best to sort of explain what that means and what that is, but she can't be in front of the camera for long periods of time. And so we're trying to break it up for her. But in today's interview, you're going to hear some incredible experiences and incredible in a very sad way of using that word. But I think that her experience is unique, but I also think that there are probably other people that have had similar experiences to hers. And she doesn't know that I'm doing this, but I would like to say that if anyone during our interviews with Haley specifically, if anyone donates to Mega Maniacs, being the PayPal or the Cash App or the Venmo, that we will be donating 100% of those proceeds to Haley. And I'm not going to go into why that is specifically because I have not discussed that with her, but she was a very successful insurance agent, and since this diagnosis, she is now unable to work. So if you feel it in your heart to give and to donate, please know that during her episode specifically, all of that money will be going to her. So, uh, again, she doesn't know that I'm doing that or saying that, so I hope it's okay. But please help me welcome Haley to Mega Maniacs. Hi, Haley. Welcome to Mega Maniacs. How are you?
Just say hi. I'm good. I guess we said we'd talk about F&D right off the bat, and here it is. So, hi,
Yeah.
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. And we talked kind of briefly off camera, but we both kind of agreed that it would be important to start this episode because there's probably going to be a series of episodes with us. But start off just talking about FND, which is functional neurological disorder, which you've recently been diagnosed with. And I know I met you when I actually still worked at World Harvest Church. So I have experience knowing you before this diagnosis and knowing you now. But I just wanted to see, and we can maybe show something as well, but just have you give sort of a brief explanation of what FND or functional neurological disorder is, and because there's a lot of symptoms and not everybody has every symptom, but there's a lot that's not known about this disease as well.
Yeah. So, um, I think the best like thing I can do to just start out trying to explain what F&D is and what that means for me is like nobody understands it, even the medical community. So like that's a good starting point because it really like levels the playing field. Like I can't, whatever I say, I can't really say any of these are the direct experience or 100% accurate for anybody else living out there with FND because really it's an issue the way that the like doctors will put it, and a lot of people put it for ease of understanding is it's a software issue in the brain and not hardware. So I don't want to overemphasize that point because it can lead to a lot of other misunderstandings or assumptions that are put onto the F&D community. Um, it's a very hard, but it's been because of the nature of that. I will say it is a very, very hard condition to validate your own experience in. For me, I suffer. I live with chronic brain fog. And the way that I explain that is I've gone from being a very, and I still am a very logic, reason minded person. Like I am, but I've gone from having the data points to I can't keep data points in my head because the brain fog, I more go feeling based and emotion based when I talk, and the data will come in a little bit, but most people are thinking with words and pictures in the background. For me, it feels like pictures and the emotions of colors and things like that and vibrancy are in the foreground, while the details and the context and words are more in the background. So if that's like how I try to explain for me chronically, that is my existence now. But a very easy way also to explain it is for some reason our neurons and our neural activity, like they're not sending the right messages to our bodies anymore, and we have to figure out why, and we kind of have to work with the team or but mostly with ourselves on how to find out why, because there's no current medicine to treat it. And honestly, the things they do recommend while they've seen improvements, there's a there's a very important distinction in science of significant data versus not. Right now, they're researching to get significant data to have firm answers. Right now, we're all just kind of like seeing what sticks. So that's where we, people with F&D and science, are at. Um, so we can what I like to say is you can assume because of that that we are liable to show any kind of neurologic condition. We are liable to experience symptoms like that. So I also struggle with my motor issues. I use mobility aids, especially outside of the home, 80% of the time. Um, Mobility issues, it ticks, that there is chronic pain. We do have chronic pain as well sometimes, and flare-ups that medicine again can't treat. So it's hard to explain and put it in a bow, and maybe we will add a video to help reduce this time I've taken and pick out the parts that maybe can resonate quick. But that's kind of how I would try to do it justice for my experience and still showing to everybody else's as a unified experience as well.
Absolutely. Well, and I know initially when I first found out about your diagnosis was actually on Facebook, and it was when you were at a point, and I don't know if this was in the beginning or not, but you were at a point where you couldn't even walk at that point, and you were hospitalized or going to like some kind of physical therapy. So it's the chronic fatigue, there can be seizures, the ticks. There, I mean, you said there can be symptoms that they
Actually,
don't necessarily know about.
yeah, speaking of seizures, with me being type 1 diabetic as well, just this week we had medics here. Because I had something like a hypoglycemic seizure because I've had one before from low sugar. And it felt like it, but I could just tell it wasn't. But I could not physically test my sugar. So we had to call medics here. And by the time they got here, we were able to do all the data. But in that moment, I had to teach medics what a functional seizure is because that's what it turned out to be, and explain to them I'm not crazy. And then also advocate for myself because I'd drink a whole thing of apple juice, scared that my sugar was low. My sugar, like, and I mean a big gallon thing of apple juice, like, I mean, it was scary because it felt just like my hypoglycemic seizure, where there's the static, there's the numbness in your lips, there's like things like you feel yourself shutting off. It was a very real and painful and scary seizure experience. I was asking my boyfriend, why is it so breezy in this room? There was no breeze in the room. Like, there's no breeze in our room. It was a warm room. Like, it's breezy in here, you know? It was a very real experience. And I had to explain to them what FND is and how well I know my diabetes and all of those things to advocate for me not to be hospitalized again after suffering something that traumatic. So it's a, and it was my first big functional seizure. I've had um, things like happen before, and I think a lot of people experience functional seizures differently. But um, for me, I think it just felt a lot like a hypoglycemic one because that's what I have experienced. And I don't know, but that's the you bringing up seizures. That's like, there's so many points to what FND is. It's hard to capture it all. But just 2 days ago, that's part of my life, you know. And I was bedridden. I was like 90% bedridden and required, like, my boyfriend had to help bathe me in the beginning for like the first about 3 months. It's like I started to find mobility again, but it was a very slow burn. I can't even remember when it was that I started being able to shower like with confidence without telling somebody I'm in the shower. Can you stand by?
Sure, sure.
It
Yeah.
took probably
Well,
six months, more than six
I
months
can't
for that.
imagine. Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
I can't
Uh,
imagine.
but yeah, so you see, but I'm me still, and that's what I
Yeah.
love you pointing out about you. You saying you knew me before and you know me now because it's like, yeah, anybody who knew Haley knows Haley's in there. She's just got a little more accessories now. She's
Well, I loved you the first time I met you, and I love you even more now. And I think that you're so brave and courageous, just for not only what you're experiencing now, but you and I have had some pretty in-depth conversations, and I was absolutely shocked of your life story. And and I want to kind of preface a few things here in the beginning, that your maiden name is Ross, so you're Haley Ross, and the Ross family has been very connected to World Harvest Church for decades. And I actually worked with your mom at World Harvest, and that's actually how I met you. But I don't know if it helps to, kind of start chronologically, but I know that you have an interesting experience that we haven't necessarily heard before, because you grew up at World Harvest, but you also went to school there. You've got a twin brother. You guys were very involved in the church and in the school, and so was your family. But there's also many kind of family secrets and situations that were happening outside of there, but you feel like it is all connected. So why don't you kind of start where you feel comfortable, and then I'll try not to interrupt you, but I'm sure I will definitely have some questions.
I might need help staying on track. I might try to take too many tangents because like you say, even as you say it, I'm just sitting there like smiling and laughing because I'm like hearing it. It's weird. It's my life. So I'm hearing it as it's laid out. And I'm like, really like, wow, like there's so much that it's my life and I'm seeing it from more of a third person perspective and it's weird. So I might need your help keeping on track.
Sure.
But oh look at my voice go. Let's go. Okay. So um I think the most important thing that I can say is I don't really know much of the details, but I it's there's too many patterns and kind of like a lot of the people who I'd presume have come onto this podcast, but also like for you and starting it, like we talked about it. I've only seen the first two episodes and then a few here and there because of the F&D capacity with my brain. It's hard to take it in, but there's it starts with just looking at all these things that are adding up and it's like it can't be nothing, like this can't be arbitrary, it just can't. And so for me, I've been in my life and having been so connected to the church in varying ways, like hearing about Pastor Parsley before going to the church as my grandfather's family friend, my paternal grandfather Ken Ross being, to my knowledge, the best man at Pastor Rod Parsley and Joni Parsley's wedding. So I knew him as kind of like grandpa's friend and hearing stories about them golfing together and didn't have a connection to him. And I did see him on Breakthrough on the TV at times. You know, I definitely grew up in like the household that was what is that called? Daystar. Daystar television like is on in like all of the maternal and paternal our side. We're a big Daystar family apparently. So I saw Rod. I saw the books in our houses. I just didn't really connect. And we started going to the church when I believe like the church that we had been going to dismantled for some actual like ominous reasons that I'm not going to speak on that because it was a smaller church, so I won't bring that up. But that church had some things going on, and all the kids were talking about it through telephone and kids' school. Like in our little kids' school, we were like telling each other through telephone, and when the adults heard it, they were not happy. That's what we just whispered to everyone. So, but we went back to World Harvest, and I remember it being so loud. It was loud and it was bright and it was like a concert, and I actually hated it in the beginning, and I was hoping we wouldn't attend. But then we attended like a more calm service because like that on a Saturday night, one of our first times back, my biological father had to take me out because I actually struggled with heart palpitations as a kid, which he had struggled with. So my heart was racing or just feeling off and I couldn't breathe. So he had to take me out of the place. And we still ended up making it because I end up at the school. So that's not where it ends. It's not palpitations that ends the journey there. So like I think we probably just started attending. I don't know when it just snapped for me that I loved it, but I ended up loving the sound of the music and loving watching people dance. And you know, speaking in tongues and speaking in the Holy Ghost is normalized so quick and you're taught to accept it so quick, which I'm not saying anything about my ideology on tongues at all. I'm saying it's something that needs more context before it's exposed, especially to 10-year-old brains like my own coming into this environment that I haven't seen before. Like I needed more context. I'm not putting that on the church. I'm not putting that on my parents. I'm just saying it is what it is. Like maybe it needs to be on both. I don't know. So I I'm getting off track. You see what I mean? I'm gonna tangent
Yeah,
because like
it's
I'm
okay.
just now I want to just talk about the concept of tongues and speaking in tongues because like you know I'm very open about I'm on my own spiritual journey here. Like I don't really have a title of religion that I fall into, but I definitely am a woman of faith. So I want to navigate those
Sure.
areas, but I gotta stay on track right now. So um what is that a good stopping place though? Like ultimately, you know, they advertise harvest prep in church. This is where I should go actually. They advertise, I remember a lot. I remember there was a couple years we missed it too because I loved school. Like I loved Tarhi, my elementary school in Lancaster. Like I ran for class president in fifth grade and got it. Sixth grade got rough though. And I think that's what changed it because from 10, so I'm in fourth grade and we made it a year. They did their big broadcast before the school year starts of how amazing Harvest Prep is and how to get your kids into like, a place where we, teach Bible-based, scripture-based teachings and these kids like they get chapel and this isn't just like chapel that's meaningless. These kids are really receiving the Holy Ghost. And I mean, it was a very well done event day.
And yeah, a commercial, if you will.
Harvest Preparatory School, educating students from preschool through grade 12 with a competitive private education and a distinctly biblical worldview. Our faculty and staff are dedicated to teaching the mind by touching the heart. We offer a blended learning environment to meet the academic needs of all students. Our brand new Academic Research Center is equipped with the latest technology designed for the inquiry-based learner. Boasting a proven track record of excellence for over 30 years, Harvest Prep is dedicated to ensuring students fulfill the total plan of God for their lives. Our graduates have earned over $30 million in academic, merit-based, and athletic scholarships in the last decade. We offer championship athletic programs for all grade levels, led by some of Central Ohio's top coaches. As a participant of the College Credit Plus program, we provide students with the opportunity to earn college credits at the high school level. We have committed to serving the families of Central Ohio since 1986 because our passion is your child's success. We are Harvest Prep. To begin your pathway to prep, visit us online at harvestprep.org.
Yeah,
To
I can't.
and
Yeah,
what
buildings
year
like
approximately was that? Do you remember?
so if I was like, well, so coming back around 10 in fourth grade, 2006-ish, 5, 6-ish.
Okay.
Um, so, but yeah, like, I mean, I can't call it a sermon in good faith, but it was a very well constructed event. And, I was like, dang, like as a kid, I didn't want to go. They didn't sell me. I just knew to myself, I was like, they definitely just sold my parents. I'm going to get stuck going here. Like, and And you know what ended up happening, and I don't really know exactly if it was a 3-year spread of things or what, but my older brothers, we did end up going into foreclosure on our home in Lancaster when I was in the beginning of my sixth grade year. And things were rough leading up to that. So we actually split up as a family, and the decisions were made. And I don't know how much I really just, these are kind of things I'm having to go back and reprocess now and see them for what were they really and not necessarily what was I told. And it's hard to find the line of saying something factual versus something opinion based,
Okay.
like finding that line. So we might need to, like, I don't know, edit this a little to help me find it. But we basically split up, and this is like a part I didn't think I would go into, but I will. My paternal grandparents, so Ann and Ken Ross, the ones that were close with Pastor Parsley, and to speak back to that relationship and that core relationship, I have no idea what happened because they did stop going to the church. The Rosses did, and there's a reason my family was going to a different church. I don't know any of their timelines because it was either before I was born or right like when I would be too young to know what's going on. All I know is the breakdown between the Parsleys and the Rosses was something the Rosses would not talk about when asked. I was not ever privy to that information. I also know it was enough to keep my parents from going and taking us to that church. And then when I'm 10, suddenly, now they're thinking about going back when their church crumbles for a reason that is not very churchy. And that's when they go back to that place. So I don't have any knowledge, but the paternal grandparents I am moving in with, now I'm 12, so I'm back at World Harvest, still don't know their issues with Rod. They don't really talk to us about church or anything like that. My grandma was also like she was either the first employee of the church or the first accountant of the church. I don't know. I just somebody told me that who saw me because they say I'm the spitting image of her. So people would know me who knew them and come up and be like, "Oh, you must be Anne's granddaughter. You look just like her." And I'll be damned, like I really do look a lot like her. Like I can't deny that. So but I moved in with them, me and my twin brother do. But so that our older brothers who were going into high school, because we do have two older brothers, and then so me and my twin should be in the same grade, and then one of my brothers got held back, so they were in the same grade. So school wise, my parents essentially had two sets of twins. So my older brothers were going into high school when we were going into sixth grade, and so they separated us, my biological father and his father, so Ken Ross. They started trucking, so they were doing the type of trucking that's like country, a lot like you are gone for a week or 2 weeks and you come back for a weekend and then you're back on the roads. And they took their truck together to do that, to kind of try to come out from the debt they were both kind of falling under. So me and my twin stayed with my paternal grandmother, just us with her. And then my mother went with my two oldest brothers and our baby brother, who was like, if I had to, he's 8 years younger than me. So how old does that make him if I'm 12? 4?
Four.
Four.
Okay.
So he goes with them to live with my maternal grandparents, where they're now able to access like World Harvest schools for them, or Harvest Preparatory School. So they start Harvest Preparatory School, and then we stay in the Lancaster system. And then in seventh grade, we were able to all get back under one roof, living with my uncle. And with my parents then put me and my twin into the school. So we were able to join right. So for Harvest Prep, it's K through 12, but seventh grade is when you're in upper school. So you're basically going in, like you might as well be in high school. I was in classes with ninth graders at Harvest Prep as a seventh grader. Okay, like it's which
That's right.
is that can be talked about, but we will not talk about right now. But that's a really good representation of this great education. So I was not there because I was so smart. I was not in the room with a ninth grader for being a smart seventh grader. Like, yeah. So anyway, that's kind of the whole like foundation story, I think. Does that cover the foundation of my connection, like to it?
Sure. Sure.
Okay.
I don't know where you want to kind of go from here, but there are not only issues that have been going on in the home for most of your life or some of your life, but there were also several issues that you experienced actually going to Harvest Preparatory School and to the church, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
There's so many areas that it could go.
Okay.
I don't know how to even chronologically align them. I just don't.
Okay.
It's
Maybe where you feel comfortable, because we know that this is going to be several parts, and
yeah,
obviously
yeah.
I'm trying to keep notes, but I know there's just so much with your experience, not only as a child, but then working your way through the school, but then all of everything that's happened since you left there, and still having family connected there, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah. So it's hard because it's again for me, this is my life, right? And so how does it make sense? Like how do I make everything I have to share make the most sense to anybody who were to maybe observe this, just to give us the best chance? Like the way I tried to describe FND is the way I'm trying to approach this. Find the best chance, the best opportunity for anybody who is open to like just hearing a message and thinking on it. Like, you don't need to learn from what I'm saying directly. Learn from the way your brain thinks on what I'm saying. Like, take those, how do I find a way to just give us the best opportunity for more community and connection with this platform you've built so eloquently, and I am graced to be able to join you on. So it's that's kind of where I'm at. It's like, this is my life, but I want it to be done in a way that's like meaningful and intentional, so
Absolutely.
impactful. So that is how I guess I would start that, because I don't know what I'd say after. The point is, I don't know where to go.
Yeah, you don't. Well, let me ask you a question, because I'm interested in the answer to this, and I don't know if you even know the answer, but functional neurological disorder, the doctors really don't know what causes it, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And basically when they come to this sort of diagnosis, it's because they've ruled other things out. And one of my questions is, and I know you really haven't seen many of the episodes, but there is a counselor, specifically, I know her name's Debbie. I think it's like Debbie Lockhart or something. I think I sent you the program she was on with Everett at Ohio for Freedom, and said, hey,
Yes,
if
yes,
you get a
yes.
chance to watch this. And she talks about,
I did watch those. I was
yes,
keeping you updated. I was like,
yes. And she talks about when you have experienced a lot of trauma and a lot of stress, especially in formative years, but even just in your life in general, that and you don't deal with them, or you don't get resolution to them, that they can present themselves in different ways as you get older. And when I heard her say that, you were actually the first person that I thought of and said, well, could this be what's going on with Haley? Because F&D, I mean, I've tried to research it on my own, and it's like the symptoms are all over the place. They kind of come and go. You've said that people in your family, even your own mom, doesn't believe that you have this diagnosis or you have something wrong with you. So so what were your thoughts on those things when you know that this is happening to you? And I've interacted with you enough to know that this is real. It's not, and I think I've noticed that when you start feeling a little bit more comfortable and a little bit more calm, and maybe you've had enough rest and that sort of thing, that your symptoms seem to be a little bit better. But then, like that, they can come back on because of stress, or maybe there's just things going on that that you can't really I don't want to say acknowledge, but you can't articulate them in the moment. You just can feel that something is kind of changing.
Ago at age 41, he encountered a stroke, and maybe that got the process started of him doing a reevaluation. But could the trauma that he went through these experiences that were on that video, could that possibly have contributed to him having a stroke at such a young age?
Yes, and I'll tell you why. It very much sounds to me, from hearing his testimony that you shared with me on tape.
Yep.
He was truly traumatized by what happened. And as he was traumatized, that meant that his body began reacting to that.
Oh.
Because the body always tells us what is really going on.
Yeah.
And if experiences trauma, then it goes into very much the same kind of situation that soldiers who are at war experience. And that means that their immune systems and their hormonal systems may elevate.
Right.
And until that trauma is resolved, the body keeps acting in a mode to try to protect itself. And that can happen even long after soldiers come back from war, or when a person is sexually traumatized by abuse or other instances. The body remains on high alert.
Right.
And it will not calm down. And eventually, pumping all of that adrenaline and other hormones in the body can have an impact on overall health. And that certainly can result in stroke.
Oh my.
It can result in heart problems, digestive problems. It just wreaks havoc with the body as long as the trauma is present.
And even all those many years later, until it's resolved.
Yes.
Huh. Not exactly the testimony you'd expect from interacting with a faith and healing preacher. Miss Debbie, this I will let this be my last question.
Okay.
For you.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my gosh, there's so many things I can say. Like, thank you. You've just like really, oof. Okay. So, first, yeah, like the observation, like thank you for saying that, because it means a lot. Like how much people don't actually really observe somebody in a way that they can contextualize back and say, like, I've learned just from observing you. And that's kind of what me having FND requires for me to have anyone in my life, which is why it's like I have to kind of balance not being like upset if I lose somebody, because it's a lot to ask people to be in my life. So that's the biggest gift, what you just did there. Also, I do want to go back to the very beginning, and it's really, it has been understood, and it is easiest, like in kind of like more of a casual form, to discuss FND as a diagnosis like of exclusion. And that's even how I understood it in the beginning. But recently I've seen more advocacy from practitioners and people with FND. And so I feel like it's important for me to say, like, it is not a diagnosis of exclusion completely or at all. And that's part of why we've had trouble with being validated. We were considered a mental health disorder called stress conversion disorder for so long. We've only recently been validated as having actual neurological activity in our brains. Like, it's not been long. And that's why they're so behind on the research. That's why there's not a lot significant out there. So saying what causes it, like, yes, trauma is a high associating component that people are seeing. Other diagnoses of mental health or neurodivergence, I should say, are also a very common, like, morbidity. I don't know if it's morbidity. That word always makes me nervous. So but coexisting factors. I don't know. I think like a science person. I just don't have all the right terms, so I like throw them together and hope it works. So, but it is like the way that even for me, when I tick and my throat closes, like I watch somebody say, this is how that happens for somebody with Tourette's versus this is how it happens for someone with functional tics. And you can observe it happening. And there's very distinct differences that can be observed in order to build a diagnosis, not just be an exclusionary diagnosis. And so I think rebranding it from the exclusionary kind of diagnosis understanding, while it's an important chunk to keep in our back pockets and understand, have there, like it's important to rebrand that it can also be a diagnosis of like, or observations. Like, even though we can't see anything in the brain, there are observations that can be made to support an FND diagnosis. So thank you for giving me the platform again to say that, and the space to say that. And then for my mother, currently I am voluntarily ostracized from my entire family. And I would say like the core person, because not everybody who I've kind of like shut out, blocked, or removed access from, it hurts to do that for a lot of them, because like a lot of them I still love, and they did support me in the ways when they were presented an opportunity, they supported, you know? But my mom would be the seed, that core root, that kind of every branch. I had to make that decision because I couldn't make a sliver of room anymore after all the years which you referenced of just not being taken seriously. And so I can't even in this moment tell you what my mother, not, like definitely not the rest of my family, but my mother specifically, I cannot tell you what she thinks about me with FND. I was convinced she did believe me. Like in the beginning, I had to try to find a way to communicate to them what I was going through and say, like, I can't be what I was before. I didn't realize that they didn't know what I was before. So communicating that got really confused. And there was like, I had planned all year my mother's 50th birthday party and trip. And I was pushing my brothers to make it work because two of them like couldn't afford it. I ended up paying for them to be there, like paid for their family section to be there, rented a house and whatever. And I got diagnosed August 1st, that weekend, to celebrate her birthday. August 1st was her birthday, by the way. Her 50th birthday, August 1st. I woke up not able to use my legs July 30th. And since I just got diabetes, type 1 diabetes, the summer before, on the 31st, I decided to stay home and watch TV in bed and have one last day before my life changed forever. So on the 31st, which would be who I call my father, which I struggle with that now, but he's my stepfather. I refer to my biological father as my biological father. And now I guess, I don't know, I'm going to continue calling my dad, and not my stepdad for now. Where was I? Can you help me find my way back?
Sure. You were talking about your planning your mom's 50th birthday party, and that on July 31st that you had made the decision to stay at home because
Yeah.
you could not use your legs and
And
your
I was
life
like, I'm
was
not
going
going
to
to the
change.
hospital. I'm going to have one day before I go to the hospital. So the 31st is when I lost my legs. But, you know, like the first is when I was in the hospital, got observed by all the teams and the revolving door, because I made sure I went to like OSU, where it's a student and research hospital, because I knew what I had I wasn't going to get it at, you know, Trinity. So, so that was my mother's birthday, and the trip that I'd been planning, like really I started in December of the previous year planning this and formulating it, and my sister-in-law helped a lot when it came to like the functioning and building it. But that weekend was the trip that we planned. And I'll just say it just didn't go well. And I definitely pushed my own wants of my mother not doing dishes on her own birthday weekend on people, like 100%. I was definitely controlling, but I paid for half of us to be here, and I'm disabled now and I can't do anything. So the people I at least paid to be here, I would hope would like get up and wash a dish for our mother for her 50th birthday weekend we planned. No, like things just escalated. Like if that's the kind of small thing I have to, like you can imagine, I don't need to go into the detail, but when you're talking about something that insignificant being a source of stress in this environment with your sister, like I'm using a walker, I can't even go up the stairs to see the second story of the house I rent, like me and my sister-in-law rented for this event, and I've paid 3 times for people to be here, like myself and 2 other brothers. I can't even see the house. It was like the day when we were checking out, I was like, please, like somebody help me get upstairs. I just want to see the rooms, like on our way out. That's like you just imagine all the things. I had a very bad hypoglycemic event and I got very frustrated before, and within seconds I'm on the floor shaking, and I still had to apologize for the people I got frustrated with. So you start to realize people aren't taking you seriously, and it's like I, stuck it through to come to this weekend and try to pretend I'm stronger than I am, and even that isn't enough to get help or to at least have people have patience with me and maybe my requests. I don't know. So it really, everything imploded after that weekend. Like, eh, it's not like worth going into the details, but there was a lot of tension that blew up and a lot of misunderstanding. And I just could not get through to people. And I'm not saying every action I made was perfect. What I'm saying is I'm disabled and I was at my worst. I was at the point where I was bedridden basically for 3 months, but somehow I made it during that weekend to challenge myself to have a walker, to be out and around, and to go out and lay by the pool and go into the pool and find out I can swim. I can use my legs in the pool, Like, I don't know. It's amazing how things imploded after that, but it needed to happen. And it's been a journey since beginning of August, completely being cut off from my family. Essentially, it was just my parents, but my brothers weren't there. And I reached out to my brothers too, like, hey, I want to hang out. Once I can remember specifically to my brother and sister-in-law, and I said, of course I love the kids. I want to see the kids, but y'all just come over, spend time with me. I'm alone. Like I have nobody. I have my boyfriend who is having to work and support me. And I mean, for lack of better words, wipe my ass now. Like, like
Yeah.
we need people to come help, and his parents were helpful too, but like it's like I have a huge family. He has parents in town. Like he comes from your traditional family where they have a small amount of kids and they grow up and then they all get together. Like I have 5 brothers, 3 step siblings, like, and then all this local family too with a lot of kids, like you would think. And I just feel like ashamed for asking for help. Like I don't know how to ask for help. I'm confused, and I'm like, oh, I tick a lot. I'm loud. I scream. I cry. Like maybe it's not efficient for people to come see me. And I gave them that credit. So I stopped asking. But eventually I found out, like when me and my mom worked on our relationship, when we tried to work on our relationship and we started by going to therapy with my psychiatrist, who, by the way, whole other side story there, but there was 2 HIPAA violations during that one meeting that kind of let me realize something's wrong with the psychiatrist, because his like desk worker kept coming in during our therapy session. And he knows like I've been disabled and ostracized from my mom. I think this was late September, maybe late October. It had been a long period of time to be going through disability and have no family and no mother support. I mean, she still brought groceries or whatever, I guess sometimes. It's hard to say, but it wasn't the support that was needed. But yeah, so it was during that we tried, and I started teaching her me, like we separated from the psychiatrist, talked to the car, and she really validated a lot of the things I was saying. And I told her, I don't want anyone to talk about like me with anybody. I want people to take time intentionally to come to me and want to learn me. Like I can't have people showing up who I have to force to be here. And I thought she understood. I taught her me, I taught her my needs. She'd been there when, I mean, I had a full meltdown in the car, and she did. And my sister-in-law was there because we went to do tattoos. She got like a matching tattoo of mine. Um, and this was like our big outing after working. And I was like, oh yeah, you've earned this. I think I can trust you to take me somewhere and be able to handle my needs. And I had a huge meltdown, and she ended up handling it so well through the end of the night. And then at Christmas, it just became suddenly very clear that she wasn't believing everything I was saying in the way she was pretending to, by how she had responded when I needed her. there were on Christmas Day, there was, I don't know, so I guess all of it culminates to Christmas Day and realizing there's a connection because I haven't talked to my brothers. But when I have, I've tried. I've apologized. I've said, I love you. And I've said, I want to see you. But her words to me on Christmas Day were, I pushed them away and I need to be fair if they're not being responsive to me. And that didn't make sense. And from there, as I started to really break down more because it was hitting me that they were never going to take me seriously after all these years. And now I have this, which we do understand is very trauma based. There's a very high connection with people with trauma, and there's no denying I have suffered a lot of trauma from any of them. They may not know the extent because they refuse to see me or see the extent, but they can't deny the trauma because there's been so much, it's undeniable. Mm-hmm. And now I have this, and it's not enough because I'll never be enough for you, but that doesn't say anything about me as much as it says about you, you know? Yeah. So I had to. So it's just like her impact and realizing like, how do they have this message when the only things I've said to them were with the love? I mean, I did ask, and I told you this before, Robin, so it's hard for me to remember like what we talked about before recording. So yeah. If you hear like where there might be like a gap, but what we talked about before was my request. So I sat out on Thanksgiving because I knew my mom wasn't ready and I wasn't ready to be in the environment of my family for Thanksgiving. I was still too sick. I mean, when I say I was bedridden, like it was like a good day when I could make it to the couch and then make it to the bathroom on my own with my walker. Like this was really just my life from August through now. These are the things I've gone through. So like physically not healthy enough on Thanksgiving, nor is the relationship with my mom or the trust built in my mom strong enough for me to put myself in that environment. But I was so excited. We planned out Christmas and I was so excited. And I texted my brothers and I just asked, hey, I'm going on Christmas Eve and staying the night. I'm going to just maximize my time with Ma and my little brother and his girlfriend and my dad. They were there and, it was nice. And I said, and I'm going to leave by 2 p.m.-ish on Christmas. So I just asked, like, it's probably not going to be a long time, but like when you guys show up, like just for the time that I'm there, please don't mention our biological father. Because one of those traumas they can't deny is that sexually abused me my entire childhood and became physically abusive when I approached him when I was 11 or 12. And I started being like, this isn't okay. And they were there. They watched the abuse. There's a vivid memory of mine being choked up against the wall, feet off the ground, and my brother's watching. And my mother also was the recipient of abuse as well when I opened up to her about what was going on. And we had to, I was given a decision around like 11 or 12 whenever I came out about it. Maybe 12 or 13, I think, is the closer. I don't know. But whenever I came out about it, it was, and she denied this after the fact. And it's just so unfair to even deny this because why would I make this up? And I can't unimprint this from my mind. My mother's saying when I come to her, like, well, we're not doing well with money. We're already living in your uncle's house. Like at this time, I'm sleeping in a shared loft with my brothers or in a shared bed with my mother when rode for trucking. Like we're not in a good place. And she's saying we can end up in a box and leave now if you want to do that, if you want to go to the police, or you can give me time to save up, give your brothers a proper senior year, let them get out, and then it'll give us time to save up so we can get out safely. And so like I'm like, well, duh, that's the right course. So I've been making sacrifices for them all, and you just start to realize it's her, and I don't know how much you've poisoned the vein. I just don't know the extent of that, because even my brothers, who my direct words say I love you to, it's weird. It's not there, so I just had to cut everyone. And it's been a very isolating and freeing and liberating time, actually. Because, like, I mean, I opened up to you about some other things that are going on right now. When you don't have that safety net and this starts happening, it sucks. But I wouldn't go back. Like, I get it why they say, like, when people escape and when people get out of these really traumatizing, like, systems, whether it's a church like World Harvest or a more textbook example of a cult structure or a family structure like mine or whatever, or structures that are built around us and within our very fabric of our country, it's hard not to just go back when you try to fight against it, because it's like everything tries to take you down. And that's why I guess you say you gave me credit for being brave for doing this, but it's like kind of like when you have nothing to lose and people don't listen, that's kind of the worst thing they can do for somebody who's still got fight in them, you know? Like it's like you really like, I deserve more. And you beat me down to the point that I realized I really do deserve more, because I didn't believe you when I wasn't at rock bottom. But nobody deserves rock bottom. And somehow it's becoming easier to realize I deserved a lot more than even just being a stomp down from rock bottom. I deserved a lot more the entire time. And people deserve so much more. And the connections of this church and this ministry, and I mean, it existed before I was there. Like, I mean, I literally starting to attend there. I remember already being prepped for saying it's not a cult, because my parents are telling me this place is a cult. Like, or people think that it's a cult. Like, people call it a cult, and they're like, that's not it. And since it's not a textbook cult, you can write it off, and then you just start to believe everything they're saying because you're supposed to, and they're not actually a cult. People, they've caused a lot of damage, because back in 2008 people were already trying to say it's a cult, and people weren't listening. So it's time for people to, I can't make people listen, but I guess what I have been saying is I can make them hear my voice. I can make them hear me.
Absolutely. And I don't know if we ever talked about this or if I ever asked you this, but was anyone at the church or the school ever aware of the abuse that you were enduring at home and your mom was enduring, and even your brothers to a certain extent?
I wouldn't know if my brothers opened up, any who they would have opened up to, or who my mother would have opened up to while we were in it. And I know I did it. I had been, because there were other instances of abuse before. I worked up my courage to talk about what done to me. My only perpetrator throughout my life. Like, my first memories are three. And it's not one person from three, you know? And so um what what was I talking about?
I asked you if anyone was aware of, if
Okay,
anyone
yes.
at World
Thank you.
Harvest or at Harvest Prep was aware.
So the first time I came out, there was a similar kind of breakdown scenario of the live in a box or this, you know? So it's like I had been molded to not go to authorities. Actually, in fourth grade, what I can tell you is not at the church, but I did finally open up to the right people, because their parent was a mandated reporter, and they did report what I said was going on in the home. And I'll never forget, because I was such a goody two shoes, straight A, whatever student, like getting called to the principal's office in fourth grade, and the class going, ooh, and I was like almost gonna cry just from that. Like, I was so embarrassed that that was happening. Like, I just wanted to be under the radar, and I went in, and it was a social worker asking me, and I lied. I lied to her face, and I think back on that all the time, because the school principal was there, and she was sitting there, and I said it was like a friend in the neighborhood, and they're not allowed in the house anymore. And they're like, they tried. So I do know they tried. They really tried to get me to open up, and I didn't. So I was very, very, very trained not to open up. In fact, I felt afraid because I talked about it so little, I knew exactly who it was. And I remember telling my mom, and my mom was crying. She was crying because of the potential implications of if I said the truth, not because of what I went through. She was screaming and crying in the car when we went to the store and was like crying about what could have happened if I was honest.
I mean, I know that, we sort of have similar experiences. Now, mine wasn't my dad, but it was another family member. Um, and my mom, knew something was going on, but didn't know who and didn't really try to figure it out. In your situation, your mom knew, and and you believed her to know, and it sounds like based on what you're saying that she did. Do you feel like she was too scared because she was abused as well, or that it
I think
was
she
a
was.
reputation thing? Or I mean, because you don't really ever, and we can't really speak for her, we don't, she's not speaking, but based on your experience, why did she not go and report this? Because you did, and we'll get into this, maybe today, maybe at a later date, but you
Yeah.
did end up making a police report, on and your biological dad. But it wasn't until like 2021 or 2022, which is actually around the time that I met you.
Mm-hmm. It
Yeah.
actually was. I think, wow. I'm like, I really remember because you met me with my manager, Dan, at that time. And he
Yeah.
really on my journey, like what an instrumental human in my journey. He was the first person to show me like a Christianity that was more open-minded and not as rigid and more love-based. And like I actually started going to like youth groups with him and his family. And I think we talked about that maybe back when we would meet. And that was literally because of that time frame. That is exactly when I was talking about it and doing those things. So I don't know. That's wow. Like did not connect that 360. Like whoa. Well, like it's nice when God lets you know you're in the right place at the right time.
Sure.
um,
Absolutely.
so yeah, that would have been around then. There was, I mean, and there's so much like it's hard. My life moves so quick. Like even present day, like talking to me, things are different. Like if we talked a month ago, like that is so last season. Like I move quicker than fashion. Okay, like it's just, and so I that like there was another report filed actually where I had to do a forensic interview. So that fourth grade instance wasn't the only time I was in a setting where I could have been honest, but that was a retaliatory action by my mother after I had moved out of her house and back in with my biological father, which it's like, how the hell did that happen? We can't get there today, right? So like, but it speaks to exactly what you were mentioning before in her when you said if she was previously abused. Like, I'm very big on generational like sins and curses and stuff and spiritual ties because that's what they teach you at World Harvest. That's how they like put the fear in. And we've talked about this before, the high sex like component of their ministry, like the high attention to sex. And it's like spiritual ties were talked about for abstinence, almost in absoluteness. Like, I don't, but we need to talk about it. Like, yeah, and I'm about to say it for sexual like molestation and pedophilia, and they use it in that way, but they use it and too so we can forgive it and so we can understand it. But they don't talk about it in the ways that are more expansive than that, right? I know for a
Yeah, and
fact
what
for my
about
mother.
the accountability? What about the that there are victims that are under these roofs of these religious businesses? You know, I struggle to call them churches anymore, but
Yeah.
there were instances even at Harvest Prep and at World Harvest over the years of young people getting molested and pedophiles being elders in the church and being involved in the organization. And um, even when they were trying to bring it to their attention, it was being ignored, or they were just saying, well, you've got to talk to our lawyers.
Mm-hmm.
Not, we need to nip this in the bud. We do not want this in our organization. We cannot allow children to be hurt. And
Which, by
I
the way,
just
is a very
recent
business mindset approach for a church.
sure.
And it's like, yeah, you could do that. I would be almost okay with that. But it's like, where's the humanity? Like, this is supposed to be a church. This is supposed to be a place of God, and you are supposed to be a man, woman being of God. Where's the compassion? Where's the humanity? See, it's like we're expecting them to do just like the right business move and response. Whereas it's like you're not even supposed to operate as a business. Like, whoa, like this is so separated from where it should be. The fact that we're having the conversation alone is, for me, it's like it's enough. Like, people, whether you're connected to this faith, like, first of all, if you're not connected to this faith, you should be listening more, because that it's this version of the faith that is oppressing you, that is directly impacting you and coming for your ability to continue to live in this safety and this freedom of all that is you. And this, like, when it is a business, you have to pay attention and tear these down. It's, I mean, you can be mad at the people who were involved and people like myself who escaped, because I know I did damage and I never deny that. If anything, I have a hard time being a stronger ally and speaker because of who I know I was and who I was created and constructed into. But again, like I said, you keep pounding me. Like, I'm not going to be scared of that anymore. In fact, it's like, you know what? We all need to realize, whether you have the space to be a person, to be available for people who come out so that they don't go back to that safety net or not, this impacts you. Sign a petition, talk about it, share it. Like, we need to speak about this. This is so ingrained in our country, and the things that are happening to people individually, and like micro and macroeconomics, really.
Since you said that, why do you think people do go back once, and I'm talking specifically about World Harvest and even other ministries or religious businesses that operate like they do, that is very cult-like. I mean, I believe it is a cult, but that's my opinion. Why do you think, even when they experience the worst of the worst, why do they go back?
I don't think that I am somebody who can really speak to that in confidence, but like in my just observations of tendencies of human behavior, like, and my personal experience and just some of what I've learned, like, there's a lot of reasons. There's not one reason. It could be that that is where you've had support, and it might be the only place you felt support. And it's kind of like when we think on our first love in high school, and we've experienced real love, and we're like, that was not love. It's like these people who have never experienced support before, well, at least that does alleviate some kind of stress they're feeling in their life. There's some stress of feeling isolated, or maybe, like, honestly, a lot in the church and like true cult systems, maybe not directly with World Harvest, but like that's exactly how it works. There is economic support, like financial support built in, but whatever it is, they've never felt true support. They've never actually had what they deserve, though they don't know how to ask for what they deserve. But what they do know is when they go there, there is a very intricate system that they're not aware of, but it results in some kind of alleviation of whatever they're needing to feel like they're part of something, or they're supported, or they're in a community, or they just belong in this world, you know?
Well, but the support is contingent on them towing the line, right? I mean, the what you feel in those organizations, and I'm not slamming anybody whatsoever. I'm truly really trying to get to the bottom of because it's, when I worked there, I would say on a very regular basis that everyone walks around like an abused wife, right? And I've been in very abusive households, and I always like wondered, like, why, why do you romanticize this relationship after you know how awful it has been, and then you go back and but I've done it myself, and so
It's like there's
I
layers of it too. Like and
sure.
that's, I guess, why it's hard to say it. Like there's this layer and that layer, because when you said that, I have so many memories of women literally doing that
Yeah.
in the church. So keep going. But I'm like, yes, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like
Well, and
FND.
it was
There's
it
not
was
enough to
staff
say.
members, it was the staff members that I was referring to because I
Me
knew
too.
yeah, it's like the abused wife syndrome where they're upset in the moment when the abuse first happens. They're upset, they're angry, they're frustrated, they're sad, they feel ashamed, and then then they get a couple of compliments and the love bombing happens, and then that buys the abuser more time,
Hmm.
and then but the cycle just repeats until they're so worn down and broken that even when they know it's wrong and they know they need to go, they don't, because they don't believe that they deserve any better than that.
So I guess that's actually a beautiful, like, extra kind of perspective to add to it. Is that's So I'm thinking from my place when I say people go back, I'm thinking of my position now where I had no question. I was like, it's over, it's done, da da da. But when you're in it and you're kind of going in and out and you're not really breaking, because when you fully break, you still go back, and there's many complications to that. But you're right, it is like an abused wife, and it's almost like a big narcissistic system, and all of its like wives or partners. Like, I don't know if I'm able to say names. I'm anxious to say names, but I will, because I know you'll understand the gravity of the names. But when we went there, we had to be on the blessing fund. People assumed we afforded it. No, we had to be on the blessing fund for tuition, and that meant my mom had to work at a lot of events. She had to do concessions for like football games, basketball games. I remember setting up for their other little, luncheons and brunches that they host at the church and stuff like that. And so my mom worked in a sector called local church, which, to your question earlier, during the abuse, I have no knowledge if anybody opened up to someone. What I do know is once was kicked out, then I do
Kicked
find
out of
out
the
that
home, kicked
people
out of the home, or kicked out of the church?
kicked out of, no, no, I don't know. Maybe he kept going to the church for a little while. I don't remember, but out of our home. So what we did actually save up the money, get my brothers through senior year. I went to stay with an aunt at her house for my mom to do the transition and let her know she knew everything and kick him out. And then I came back home. Um, so like eighth grade is when they separated, and then whatever. Um, He wasn't really kicked out though, because he still had a big place in our lives and continues to, which is why I had to ask my brothers not to mention him. So it's, I don't know, but um the idea of that, like, that is when I know for a fact people who worked in the church and were respected within the church found out. And that's when those women, who I was around all the time, because when my mom worked at these things, I was there helping out, like, very close. But Lori sure, I can say for a fact, knew. She was my mom's closest person. They worked in the local church little suite together. And she would tell me, like, she opened up to her. And I remember being mad and telling her, like, you're like benefiting off of my trauma. Like, I had to keep it a secret all these years. I can't even get therapy. And you're telling people my business that I see every day. Like, that's uncomfortable for me. And, but then, through it, like, I was basically brought to the realization that I was being selfish and she needed an outlet too, and it's never asked where my outlet was because I wasn't allowed to be in therapy. She would say that I refused to be in therapy. And I know I started asking to be in therapy once they separated. But yeah, I did refuse before because I was told that we would be in the streets or in a box. Like, of course I refused. You made me scared of therapy. Like, you guys made me scared of therapy, so I wouldn't go into therapy. She started offering therapy when I moved back in with her, another retaliatory measure, which is why she says she tried to get me to go into therapy because of that instance where, yeah. So, um, anyway, so women, I remember setting up the luncheon and Lori, like, seeing it was such a minute detail. It was something about the tablecloth being crooked or whatever on one of the tables. It was not obvious. Um, and like she went, oh no, they're gonna be here any minute. And then I don't know if it was Debbie, but I wasn't as close with Debbie. Debbie and Lori were very close, and Debbie was like pastor's right hand person at that time. I'm sure you know the name, but Debbie's like, no. And it's like, I mean, I just remember being like, yeah, I know everyone jokes about him having OCD, or as he likes to call it, CDO, as a joke, which isn't funny now that I understand OCD on a larger scale. Like, I cracked up at that and thought it was so charming before. And it's just so, it's like, it's funny that he does it to be funny, but like, not also. So anyway, and but it was like I pushed on that. I actually remember, this is probably, so I'm definitely 14 or 15 now because this is post coming being kicked out. And I just remember looking at Lori like, it can't be that. She's like, no, he gets mad. And it's like, I also would hear like, oh yeah, he curses when he gets mad. And I'm like, the pastor curses? Like, we're taught that gay women can't be in our like youth group singing area because their spirit will come on to us. And we have a pastor cursing at people and yelling. Like, I'm hearing it. And and she brings it up and but it's like that, right? I've checked it off then, but I look back and I'm like, that is not the fear of somebody saying you did a effing terrible job. What the F is wrong with you? It's a much bigger fear than that. And now what you've done, it's exposed that. Like, for me, I now can connect what the fear in Lori's eyes were for, what the fear in Debbie's eyes were for. You know, I was around that. I was around that fear as it was happening, especially when things weren't perfect. And to know my mother's privilege of never really experiencing those things to my knowledge. And I can't imagine she would. And like I've said, I think it's because of us being Rosses, there was some kind of awareness to protect us from that. Like, we weren't forgotten as Rosses. I remember in history class, here's a connection for you because you know when I was in school and who was in my grade. But Ashton Parsley was in my history class, Mr. Mills, they're cousins, and she started showing up around that year. They know who we are because she went, Haley, even though we don't even talk. And I felt honored. She's like, Haley, please go down to my car to get my laptop out. I need it. She's like, it's this one. And I went into like the gates. I felt so cool. I was like, see, guys, I have status here. Like, that's what I'm thinking. Like, oh, they do know me. Like, I thought I was just sitting here like, oh, my family knows the Parsleys and the Parsleys don't know. But Ashton knew me, so I am known. Like, I felt so happy about that. But looking back, it's like, why were you there so much, Ashton? Why were you in my class with my teacher asking me to go get a laptop, but you're serving no purpose here? You and him just talk in the corner while we like read, and then he'll do whatever activity. It's not normal, but it was so normalized, which is another part of it, is they normalize these things. They do it so like they are calculated. It is a business. Businesses don't have a business plan, and their business is grounded in keep supporting them. So to deny the fact that, and I'm not saying you are, but it's like to not even just be very, very intentionally aware of the fact that that is rooted. The way that they get us to normalize things and be okay with things, that's not accidental. It's not incidental. It is in the system because they get us all to just kind of not really validate our own traumas and experiences as they're happening there. And to some kind of degree, we're all sitting in it, but you know, the church, gosh, the music, they know the science of how music can make you feel good. And they talk about it being the Holy Ghost so much, you start to associate the chills of live music or beautiful vocals, beautiful singing, or a great event program, whatever they put on that gets that emotional appeal. They're taking, what is it? Pathos? Is pathos the emotional writing style? I don't know. Mr. Malone did teach me at that school. He was one of the teachers that I can remember pathos. So thank you for reminding. I don't know what it's for, but that's something I learned at Harvest Prep. AP English.
Yeah, and he actually retired when I worked there. He retired from there, one of the longest teachers that had been there. So
Lasted a long time there. A long shocked that he lasted as long as he did, really. And I had some level of respect for him because he was a teacher that taught like a teacher then. But looking back, there were so many problematic things that he did say in his classes. Like, and I'll say this part because since I've given his name room to breathe, I think we had a very high population of LGBTQIA students there, like high population. I'm telling you, it's the event that they put on. It's and I am, pride, I'm an ally of the community and stuff, but he said that we need to put them all on a island and blow it up in a classroom with students he knows they're not out, but they're out, like in that kind of, it's almost a don't ask, don't tell, which is perfect because I was just talking to a former classmate about how militant it was, how when an adult came into the room, you had to stand up. And we had our Warriors Creed we had to say every day, as well as the American flag, Pledge of Allegiance, the pledge to the Christian flag, the Bible, and then and then this long Warriors Creed. Today I will believe God's word says about me, da da da, my things will not, blah blah blah. I can't remember it anymore, but I
but
can
you
still
would
hear
expect
the
that,
rhythm.
you would expect that at a Christian school, right? I mean,
Mhm.
I think that's noteworthy to say that. And we're gonna close here in just a
Oh yeah.
second on this episode specifically, but I think that is something that you would expect at a Christian school. But the problem is that there was a lot of fornicating. There was a lot of gay and lesbian activity that was going on, and they knew about it, and they would
Exactly.
verbally say that they were against it, but if it was their family member or it was someone in the inner circle in the upper echelon of the staff or family, that they turned a blind eye to it, but everyone else was ridiculed.
Yeah. It's well, it's selective outrage, right? Because a lot of those students that they are part of that community. You just know. They don't hide it. They have significant others and things like that. They're really good at basketball. When did we go to championships and they paid for all the students and it was a big deal?
Yeah.
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 So I don't know the specifics behind it. What I will say is my child ears heard this, and I haven't been able to look into it to validate it. But there was a time where Harvest Prep started opening up their student, like whatever, like with the Blessing Fund era, but it was something different for surrounding failing school districts. I feel like this was in their
Oh, at
promo
choice.
service.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At choice.
And
Yeah.
but it just seemed like a lot of the students that were coming in were really, really good at sports, and that just seemed a little convenient. Maybe it was their marketing, maybe it was their broadcasting or whatever, but they had a very, very diverse population, and not just by skin tone, which is all they wanted to ever talk about, because that's the only diversity they wanted, is the appearing diversity. They didn't want us to talk about the other ways that we were diverse in that school. And instead, they would have kids sit in a classroom with a teacher who was very well respected. As I said, he actually taught there. And he lasted a long time, but he's telling these students that he would put them on an island and blow them up. And it's like, why would you do that? It's not a secret. It's not a secret in this school that we have such a diverse population here now. Our Bible teacher also called us heathens all the time. And I don't know if that's necessarily bad. It was just really funny. And it was like a joke in the school. We'd be like, heathens. So there's a lot of like mix of like, it's a normal school experience. And then it's not, because you see a kid getting walked away in handcuffs, like my 7th grade year, or you find out in 8th grade, when I took a gap year and went to Reynoldsburg schools, I found out about all these high school boys who were great athletes meeting a girl downstairs and getting head from her. And she was a 7th grader, first year upper school. Another thing, like I said, 7th grader in class with a 9th grader when I
At
started there.
Harvest Prep.
Yep. So my 8th grade year, a 7th grade girl, she got expelled. She ended up being able to come back. And I think it's because they knew that there must have been something that was done to let them know they were in trouble, because they expelled her. But to my knowledge, I know at least one boy who wasn't really a boy. I'm pretty sure he was 18 when it happened, didn't get expelled. He was really good at whatever sport he was playing. Like, that's my understanding. And that he wasn't the only one. It was a lot of high school, and I'm talking junior, senior year high school students, meeting her down in the bathroom near the nurse's station, near a local church.
Oh
And
yeah. I know exactly where you're talking about. I know exactly where you're talking about.
and
And
then
I
it's just
hate
like
to do
stairwell sex. Kids were having sex in stairwells too and getting caught. And we know they have cameras. Why are kids engaging in such destructive behavior so young in your building, in your school? Why is this a common theme in this spirit-filled, God-centered school with this great education?
Yeah. And none of it getting reported. And I hate that I have to do this.
No,
I
you're
have
good.
a meeting that I have to go to. But I appreciate this first episode, Haley. And I am looking forward to more discussions with you and more episodes. And I will be in touch soon to do that. And thank you so much. And love you, praying for you. And if you need anything, you let me know.
Yes, I mean, absolutely. I love you, praying for you. Thank you so much for working with me. But I know we've been building up to this, and it felt really good. Like, once all the nerves were out, and I'm like, how do let's just talk like normal. That's what we said we'd do. So thank you for just making it a comfortable environment. And yeah, we'll definitely keep going.
Okay. We'll
Oh,
talk soon.
Deanna wants to say goodbye.
All
Yeah,
right.
go say
Bye, bye, kitty cat. See you.
see ya.